What does Battlefield 5 need to do to win its player base back? Hey guys, I'm Neil, and that is the question that I'm asking today. Battlefield 5 has been losing players steadily since launch, and if we're being honest, it didn't have a great launch to begin with in terms of player numbers. The game underperformed, according to EA DICE. I guess the first part of this question is it even doable? And the answer to that is yes, it is doable to take a game which is in a downward trajectory and turn it around. Recent examples of this could be Rainbow Six Siege and even Battlefield 4, which arguably isn't recent, but it is the most recent example within the Battlefield franchise. Interestingly, DICE LA has recently been added to the development team for Battlefield 5, and for those not familiar with DICE LA, they are the group who went into Battlefield 4 to help DICE Stockholm when that game wasn't performing well, and they helped rise that game from the ashes. So here's hoping that we can get similar treatment for Battlefield 5. Now, as any Battlefield veterans will tell you, the game has been on a downward trajectory since about Battlefield 4. Hardline was not the game most fans expected, although in my opinion it was a perfectly fine game, just maybe not the best fit for the Battlefield franchise. Battlefield 1 I personally enjoyed a lot, but it's also the first entry point for me into the Battlefield franchise. Going back and playing Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, I can see what people who have been playing this game longer are talking about. And Battlefield 5 has kind of continued that downward trend, though I will say this game has a number of redeeming points. The gunplay is, in my opinion, unarguably the best in the series that I've experienced, at least. The movement mechanics have been steadily improving. And, I mean, there have been some stylistic changes as well. The lack of 3D spotting is something that I personally enjoy. So with all these qualities and improvements to the game and the series, why is Battlefield 5 not thriving? Well, if you're a part of any Battlefield communities, there are a few common reasons given as to why this game maybe isn't performing as well as predecessors such as Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4, who are heralded as some of, if not the best games in the franchise and still have lively, active player bases to this day. Some of those reasons might be a lack of map destruction compared to, say, Bad Company 2. I mean, admittedly, Battlefield 3 did not do much to improve. In fact, many people would say that it regressed the series in terms of destruction. Battlefield 4 tried to improve it with resolution, but again, for many players, this kind of fell flat. Battlefield 1, a number of the buildings were destructible, a number were not, in my opinion. The difference between Battlefield 4, 1, and 5 is kind of a wash in terms of destructibility, all of which pale in comparison to Bad Company 2. Some players prefer certain map types, Operation Metro, Operation Locker, Fort de Vaux. These are all very popular maps amongst the community. Battlefield 5 doesn't really have its own version of that. There was the grind gameplay mode, which was added for a short time and then taken away. That's about as close as we've come. Then there are the stylistic changes, which haven't helped the player base. A number of players did not like the attrition system. The problem got so bad that DICE actually had to kind of go back on the attrition system a little bit. If you haven't heard, then they've gone to a Battlefield Hardline style where you can interact with friendly medics and supports to take either health or ammo depending on who you're interacting with. They've also added a sort of aura of healing effect to medic crates. Other choices, I mean, female character models were a big talking point. I think a bigger issue than the actual character model was the the developer reaction to the public reaction. If we take a second to look back at the games that have come back from almost certain death, Rainbow Six Siege and Battlefield 4, the two things that these games had that helped them survive was a very strong relationship between the developer and the community. Battlefield 4 had a very active community test environment, or CTE. Such environment was eventually added to Battlefield 1, but to this point in Battlefield 5's lifecycle, we don't have it. Is it something that Battlefield 5 needs? There are benefits and there are drawbacks. I don't honestly know if it's something that Battlefield needs. The world's changed, and today community interaction can be done easily over Reddit or Twitter or any number of other mediums. So Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 still have active player bases. In fact, a number of players from Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 have gone back to these games. What is it that these games have that Battlefield 5 does not? It could be any of the things I mentioned earlier. Content is one of the ones that is most frequently mentioned. And while it is unfair to compare a game that's 6 months old to a game that is years old, has all DLC released, etc., there's still something to be said for the fact that, up to the point of the recording of this video, there's only been one map added to this game, Panzerstorm. Now, Mercury is coming out this Thursday, which will be in a couple days by the time this video airs. And in fact, we just saw our first look at Mercury today, and it looks fantastic. So I am personally very excited to see how this will play out. In other areas of content, weapons have slowly but steadily been added to this game, and I would say that weapons are at a good place for where we are in the life cycle. Game modes, DICE seems to have a thing for adding temporary game modes for a limited time, and then taking them out for now, possibly to be added back in the future or replaced with a different game mode. Some of these modes have been met with praise, others with criticism, but no matter which way it goes, it seems that these are all temporary. In my opinion, in an ideal world, the player base would be sufficient enough to support the game modes that prove popular, and the ones that aren't popular, sure, they were intended to be temporary, they can be taken out. Now this is where we need to get the game back to. And honestly, going back from Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, playing older games, the biggest thing that stands out to me is map design. This past weekend, I hopped into a match on Hangar 21 in Battlefield 4, and I mean, it was incredibly fun. The objectives, they have multi-level capture points. You know, the whole map itself is just verticality everywhere. You know, the hangar A and B are well above all the other points. The D point has multi-level buildings, it has a radar tower. A, B, and C are multi-level. There's a valley, there are routes to flank, there's something for everyone on this map. There's vehicles, and that's kind of, to me, that's the epitome of what Battlefield 5 needs. It needs a map that can appeal to everyone. It needs more complexity to it. I don't know, I just want, the more I think about it, the more I go back to that game I played on Hangar 21, where you can be on any one of multiple levels of radar towers, building roofs, down in a valley, up on a mountaintop. You can literally be shot across the map in an escape pod type device. I'm not sure what the game actually calls them. And then you parachute down. I mean, there are helicopters. There are, I don't think, maybe there were jets on that map. I can't quite recall. And I get that a World War II game isn't going to have skyscrapers. It isn't going to have jets. Firestorm does have helicopters. But the flying ceiling is, in my opinion, too low to really make it enough of a reward. There's a lot of risk and not enough reward for me. To each their own. Some people like them. But that's definitely one thing I've been missing in Battlefield 5, and not really realizing Battlefield 1 could have used more of, and that was vertical gameplay. So with DICE LA, one of the developers who worked on Battlefield 4, coming to Battlefield 5, are we likely to see improvements in map design? I mean, it's not just vertical gameplay. In my opinion, I mean, the maps are serviceable, but a lot of them aren't as memorable as maps from previous games. Even Battlefield 1, which I kind of lump into Battlefield 5 in terms of the map design isn't as great as the older games. Even Battlefield 1 for me has more memorable maps. I would say the average map on Battlefield 1 is better than the average map in Battlefield 5. For me, that's kind of a shame, because to me this game has made improvements in all the right areas, and then it's gone backwards in other areas that are going to have the same effect. It's going to throw people out of the game. It's going to get them to play older games. It's going to get them to play different games. So in my opinion, what does Battlefield 5 need to do to win its player base back? It needs time. It needs time to invest in development. As I said, I think the gun content is good. I think over time we're going to get what we need. We'll get more maps. Hopefully we'll get maps that are well designed. They are competitive. They are maps for everyone. There could be infantry, there can be vehicles. Maybe we'll get naval warfare at some point. We'll get different factions. Different factions will have different vehicles. They'll have their own weapons. We'll get more of everything. Who knows, maybe we'll get a map that will play similar to Metro or Logger, and that should satisfy at least some of the player base. All in all, I like where Battlefield 5 is. I think it's kind of frustrating as a player to say after 6 months that the game just needs more time and more content, but I think that's where we're at, and I think that that's a sign of where the game was at launch. We know the launch wasn't great, we know the launch was rushed, and unfortunately, it might be a year and a half in the life cycle before this game really gets to a point where a number of people are going to want to play it over other games. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.